This guy, Butch Wilmore, he's a pretty cool guy if you read his resume. He's a captain in the Navy. In November, he recently became the commander of the space station. What I like Butch the most for, though, is that he became, and it'll go down in history, as the first person ever to build things off of planet Earth. And that's because Butch was the guy who got the lucky job of installing the 3D printer that we built for NASA. He installed it on the space station, and then he went forth to be the one to work with us from our remote operations center, which is actually one building over, where we commanded this printer. So I joke that if you want to put something into space today, you can go out to Kennedy Space Center or Vandenberg Air Force Base down the coast here, or you can go to a small office over here and give us a file on a jump drive, and we can email it to space to this printer. So this is a subset of what we printed today. The bigger subset is all these. It's hard to see, I know. But the story I want to tell you guys is about actually the last thing that we printed in space. So the first 20 things that we printed were preloaded. They were on an SD card inside the printer. The last thing that we printed was the first file that we ever uplinked to the printer. So it's a file that didn't exist in space, and we sent it digitally to the space station and then printed it. And the story is about this wrench, and it got a lot of media attention. You might have heard about it. There's people that are printing this wrench now. The file's out online, so it has its own meme. People are dissecting the wrench to understand how it works, because there's moving mechanisms inside and there's no assembly required. And so it's a fascinating story there. What happened was we did the 20th print, and it was a socket head. And Butch floated up to the printer to remove the socket head. He never knows what is in the printer because he's out. We're doing all the operations. He just comes up and removes the part. And he floated up and he saw the socket head, and he goes, "Man, I wish I had my wrench with me right now. I'd try that out." And so we decided, hey, we've got about a week until this uplink part happens. We should go design a wrench. And we had already designed the part that would be the uplink part, and we had tested it time and time again. We knew it worked, and we decided to scrap all that. And somehow we were able to convince NASA to go along with us here, and we designed this wrench. And so it started here. I'll tell you the story of how easy it is to get something into space now. This is Noah. He's one of our engineers. He designed the wrench in about a day, and we have a philosophy about iterating quickly, iterate early, iterate often in the company. It used to be fail early, fail often, but it turns out that engineers hate the word failure, so I had to switch it to iterate. But it's the idea of iterating. So he's designing 3D printing. At the end of the day, he's got a wrench, and it works. It's got moving parts. It's an actual socket wrench with a gear. And we sent it to NASA. We actually sent the physical wrench, overnighted it to NASA. They approved it. We took it through what you can imagine is a very hard approval process to get things into space. This is the first time NASA's ever allowed something to be digitally sent to space, too. So we had to really prove to them this was not going to hurt the astronauts, blow up the space station, things like that. So less than a week later, we're in our operations room, and we're sending the file to the space station. So what happens is we're trained, we're on the loop. You can see the headsets. We're talking to the ground control in Houston, and we're listening to the astronauts, and we're watching all the video. We send the file over to Houston. They send it uplink it to the space station. It's a quick process just to send it up there, and it goes to I don't think it's not laser pointer. So there's a laptop computer that's hooked up to our printer. The printer is actually inside this glove box. So this is the printer here. The laptop is hooked up to the printer, and it's a lot like a remote desktop. So we're able to actually command that laptop from the office over here. So as soon as they sent the file to the laptop, we commanded that laptop to send the file to the SD card on our printer, and from there we're able just to command the printer to start printing from the laptop. So we ran the print. Less than an hour later, the wrench is finished. Here's Butch. He's floating up to find that he now has the wrench that less than a week earlier he asked for. And here's Happy Butch holding the wrench. that goes down, I'm pretty sure at least this goes down in history as the fastest anything has ever made it to space from the moment it was asked for. And we're also pretty sure that we can beat that record. That was about 7 days. Most of that process was waiting for NASA to give us the time to print. If they would have said you can print, the day after he asked for the wrench, we probably would have had it ready at that point. So wrapping that up, all these parts, including the wrench, are now somewhere back on the planet. They returned in the Dragon capsule that splashed down a couple weeks ago in the Pacific. We're waiting for NASA to tell us when we get our hands on our parts, and we'll start doing some testing on it. And that all leads up to the second thing that we're doing, which is the second 3D printer. It's a commercial facility. So this is really where the business comes in. The first printer is our proving ground, risk reduction. Now we're building the second printer, and it's a commercial facility. So the idea is democratization, let everybody have access to space. And through this printer, they'll be able to, as easily as we sent that wrench to space, send things like satellites, new types of experiments, actual research that's happening on the space station, pharmaceutical research, and so on. So we've been now generating those first set of customers who are using the printer, and it's really going to be a wild ride starting it later this year when this printer gets to the space station. That's probably all I need to say real quick. This is the only slides I have with bullet points, but the idea of why this is so important is it allows people to iterate. They're able to try things out very quickly in space now, and that's something that's never existed before, and that's where we're seeing a lot of the innovation. And yeah, so I'll leave it at that. I look forward to talking to everybody over dinner.